You know the drill. Your executive says, let's do an offsite. And suddenly you have 12 tabs open, 3 spreadsheets going, and a bad case of decision fatigue. This is where Troop shines, helping you plan without the chaos. Whether it's an offsite, a team retreat, or a last-minute meeting, Troop lets you compare locations, budgets, and travel options to make confident decisions. Troop keeps you organized every step of the way. So no more chasing info or juggling last-minute changes across 5 different platforms. If you are ready to take control of your meetings, head to leaderassistant.com/troop. That's leaderassistant.com/troop.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yvette Lamb. Today's leadership quote comes from W. Edwards Deming, and it's, "Without data, you are just someone else with an opinion."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and I'm really excited to be speaking with Yvette Lamb today, and we'll jump right in. But first, it's episode 352. Thanks for listening. You can check out the show notes and the bio and everything and all the information to connect with Yvette on leaderassistant.com/352. leaderassistant.com/352 for the show notes. But Yvette, welcome to the show. Tell us what part of the world you're in, and maybe tell us what your favorite thing to do is when you're not working.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm in the UK. I'm in Surrey, which is just to the west of London. I live about 30 minutes drive from Heathrow Airport. When I'm not working, I love going in the garden. I love a bit of gardening. I've got bird feeders. My husband just bought me a new bird bath, so I'm filling it up with water. It's just outside my window, so I can watch the birds in it. So that's what I like doing, just going in the garden and planting things and chopping things down.
Love it. Love it. Do you do a lot of like food gardening as well, or is it more like floral gardening?
Well, I do have some accidental strawberries growing
Nice.
up the side of my decking.
Awesome. Yeah, we do strawberries. That's the only thing that we could keep alive. We tried tomatoes and a few other things, but for some reason the strawberries were the only ones that would grow well, and they kind of took over. So I'm like, well, I like strawberries. It's like my favorite food, so might as well run with it. So do you have any kids or pets, or what's maybe one of the favorite hobbies other than gardening that you like to enjoy? So
no kids, no pets, one husband. So I do have, thankfully, a little bit of free time occasionally. I'm a weightlifter, so
Nice.
I do a lot of weightlifting, obviously. I joined my local strongman gym. I'm recovering from a bit of an injury, so I'm taking it easy, but I'm hoping to get back into it quickly. But yeah, I'm a weightlifter.
Wow. That's probably, I mean, other than the injury, that's probably a pretty healthy hobby to have.
Helps with the gardening, to be honest.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Well, Yvette, thanks again for joining. Let's talk a little bit about your career and tell us a little bit how you got into the assistant world originally.
So probably similar to a lot of assistants, it was sort of by accident. I had taken a job over summer at my local estate agents, sort of selling houses, but doing the admin side, updating the website and things like that. And towards the end of the summer, they offered me a full-time job, and it was terribly paid. I didn't get to do very much. My boss was, one of my bosses was horrible, and similar story to a lot of people. I thought, I can't do this forever, and I grew up the other side of London, so to the east of London, quite far out, and I just decided one day that I would go into London and find myself a job. And, this was more than 20 years ago. It was a different world back then. And everyone basically said I was crazy. 18-year-old me just went to London. It was an hour on the train. It wasn't even a commuter town. And I made some appointments with some recruitment agencies and took myself into London. I had my maps printed out on paper because, you didn't have maps on your phone in those days. Went to some agencies. One of them called me later that afternoon and said, "Are you still in town?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Oh, we've got an interview for you." The recruiter walked me to the interview because I didn't know where I was going, went and had a job interview and got the job on the spot. And it was a sort of a receptionist style role. And it was probably the worst job I've ever had, if I'm honest. My boss was very particular and very pedantic. He complained when he asked me to print out a letter for him. I printed the letter out and took it to him. And he gave me a right telling off in the middle of the office because I didn't give him an envelope at the same time. And bearing in mind, I was 18. It was my first job. I was mortified. And I lasted 3 months in that role before I thought, I can't do this. And I went and got a different job working as a junior admin assistant for a stockbroking firm, which was infinitely better. And, made some really good friends and I got loads of experience there. But honestly, it was just being a bit ballsy. I just decided, and probably naive. I just thought, I don't like this. I'm going to do something else. So I did.
Nice. So then how long did you kind of ride that wave as far as the, executive assistant / PA, operations roles?
So I was in admin for probably 15 years. I went through a few roles, always because I wanted the next thing. I was always the person that put my hand up for projects and put my hand up for extra things. And when those projects and those extra responsibilities weren't there, I got really bored and I went and looked for the next thing. I moved from the stockbroking firm and got a job for a really large investment bank in Canary Wharf, the UK's financial district. I remember walking into the office on my first day. At this point, I was still only 19, taking a photo on my terrible old phone of the office because I was so excited to be there. This was pre-2008 crash. So at that point, working for an investment bank was really quite prestigious. And I learned an awful lot there, good and bad. Some of the stories are pretty appalling. But, it's where I learnt my trade. And I was there for 6-7 years. And then I sort of tried to move up the ranks again because I tried to get promoted when I was there. Went through the whole process. If anyone's worked in investment banking, you'll know that the official promotion process is rather vigorous and time consuming. At the end of that, I was told you don't qualify because you're just an assistant. And for me, that was like a red rag to a bull. I was like, no, I'm out. Wow, and went and worked somewhere else.
Wow. So you are kind of looking through your LinkedIn, and it's pretty fascinating to see the different titles, right? So like you've got PA to the COO, you've got executive assistant and office manager, office and business operations manager, head of business intelligence, which is kind of a different role, and then you've got chief of staff, and then senior manager, commercial operations, and now you're kind of in the revenue operations world. How did that come to be?
So when long story short, I got a role for a startup financial services company. I started off as the executive assistant and office manager. There were 5 or 6 people working off of basically a kitchen table, and the company grew and grew. Whilst I was there, I basically set the office up, new office, company policies, handbooks, putting in the corporate benefits, everything that wasn't sales, basically, I was responsible for. And, lots of funny stories about having giant printers delivered and blocking the fire exit on the 18th floor of a London high-rise.
Wow.
And I wasn't there, which went down very well. But it was at that company where I got on really well with all of the leadership team. And they were trying to launch a data analytics product. And they basically said, Yvette, you're the only person that we think that can sell this. My response was, are you nuts? Like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a data person. Like, I'm none of those things. They said, we need somebody who can go out on the road with our sales team and sell this data propensity model. And I said, I don't know what a data propensity model is. How can I sell something I don't even understand? And they all had complete faith in me. And honestly, that was probably the most fun job looking back that I ever had. I got to travel nowhere glamorous, just around the UK, but I got to go and meet all kinds of really interesting companies, mostly accountancy firms and law firms, but it gave me a real eye opener to different industries and different sectors, because these companies were dealing with these accountants were dealing with lots of companies, basically giving them loans. And so I got involved in all kinds of industries and things like that. I got made redundant from that job because there was a change in leadership, and the new chief executive that came in decided that she didn't want to spend any time on this data propensity model. And I was out, which, when you have a really good relationship with your chief executive, you think that you're almost set for life. You think, well, I'm never going to get fired. This person will never fire me. And they probably never will. But what happens if they get fired? It's a completely different story. And I suddenly found myself made redundant. And that's when I sat down and I thought, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm more than, a typical assistant. I've done all this sales stuff, but I'm not a salesperson because I haven't done it for long enough. I don't know where I sit. And so it was a real struggle for me to work out what I was going to do next. And I was looking on LinkedIn. It was over Christmas. I had no idea what to look for or do or anything. It was all a bit of a mess. And then this role came up, chief of staff to the VP of sales at an aerospace company, which was a completely new sector. I had walking in, I was very confident of my own ability, but I had no clue what this company did. I had no idea of the customers, the clients, the procurement chain, anything. They were selling satellites and satellite data into analytics firms and governments. It was so far beyond anything I'd ever done before.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, in that first job that I had at the stockbrokers firm, I remember sitting in one of the meetings and they were talking about all of these different acronyms and things. I had no clue what they were saying. And I said to myself, I've been here before. I got through it. I did it. I could do it again. And I was there, and that was 2020, and the whole world was about to collapse. And I had no idea. And I was in that job for basically a month. And then we had lockdown, and I was fortunate enough that I could do my job from home. So I was very, very lucky. And there, the chief of staff role just grew and grew and grew. The company was growing. And that's where it grew into sort of a head of commercial operations role, which was fantastic. I loved it. It was a really interesting sector. I was doing loads of stuff that I understood, but there was also bits to it that I didn't understand. And so I was learning loads. And I never, ever lost sight of my assistant roots, because those skills that I learned all those years ago saw me through a period of time that I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah. Wow. So how much do you maybe miss from the assistant role, but also how much do you still feel like some days you are an assistant. Does that make sense?
Yes, I feel like I'm an assistant every single day. Herding cats, I think if you're naturally a coordinator of people, you never lose that. In my role now, I'm volunteering for project management type roles or projects, leading on initiatives that the company wants to do from a coordination perspective. It's something that I learned, I guess, not that all that long ago. When you're really good at something like coordination of people, you don't necessarily attribute much value to it. You think, well, it's not a skill. I'm not doing anything. I'm not producing the report. I'm not building the product. But actually, you think of yourself like the conductor of an orchestra. That conductor can't play, the flute as well as, the people playing the flutes, or the violin as well as the violinists. But actually, those people wouldn't be able to play their instruments as well as they do without the conductor. And when somebody said to me, coordinating people is a skill and it is valuable, it changed my whole perception of that. Because for so long, I just thought, well, I just, organize people. I get them in the room together and I pull out the actions. That is a skill. And when you meet people that can't do it, you realize how much of a skill it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the experience I had early on. Is I was like, wait, why is everybody so bad at showing up on time and following up and details and organization, and then I kind of started to realize, well, actually maybe I'm just really good at it. And then a little more time, I said, well, it's a little bit of both. I'm good at it, but also people really, not everyone's wired to be punctual.
You find a lot of people just want some direction. They want it. They need direction. They need to be told, I need you to do this by this date, and that's it. And then they just go and do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's see, before we kind of transition to your, I don't know if would you call it your side hustle? Would you call it your hobby? What would you call the admin wrap? The Leader Assistant Academy is an AI-powered, on-demand professional development resource. It's for growth-minded executive assistants and administrative professionals just like you. When you enroll in the Academy, you get access to the Leader Assistant course plus streaming access to the audiobook. The course includes video lessons for each chapter of the Leader Assistant book, as well as the entirety of the Leader Assistant workbook study and discussion guide. Additionally, you get access to my exclusive Academy newsletter where I share thoughts on the state of the administrative profession, behind the scenes of my business, and sneak peeks at upcoming projects. Your enrollment also includes a one-on-one 25-minute coaching session with yours truly. But my favorite part of the Academy is the AI agent, which I've named ACE. ACE is the only AI agent on Earth trained on the Leader Assistant book, workbook, course, and Academy newsletter. So if you need guidance at 2 a.m. on a Thursday because you have a big meeting coming up with your executive and you want to ask for help, you can log on to the Academy, interact with ACE, and this AI agent will help you along your journey, guiding you to specific resources that are actually helpful in that moment. To find out more and enroll in the Leader Assistant Academy, visit leaderassistant.com/academy.
Well, I guess technically it's a side hustle, but it's a passion project. How about that?
There you go. That's a good way to call it. Well, before we get into that, I do want to hear kind of maybe what, and it's related to the networking and the connection that you have with other assistants of the world because of the admin wrap. But what would you say is the number one struggle that assistants have? Based on your networking and your writing with that admin wrap and all that, what would you say is the number one struggle?
Number one struggle is probably having faith in your own abilities. I think we just touched on that just now about not placing much value on the things that you are naturally good at. I think if you magnify that across the whole industry of assistants, I think there's so many people who feel that they are just an assistant. They don't place high enough value on what they do. And I think it's a real struggle to change that mindset, because actually, if you weren't there and you weren't doing what you did, you are the conductor of the orchestra. The music would be terrible if you weren't there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. What about your favorite part of your career as an assistant? What was maybe your favorite moment, or just the day-to-day favorite part of that role?
It was probably when I worked for the startup, and it was probably the only time that I can remember in my career when I didn't hear my alarm in the morning and think, oh, I've got to go to work. My alarm went off. I got out of bed, got to go to work. I wouldn't go as far to say I jumped out of bed joyous about going to work. I wasn't quite that far, but I remember just being perfectly happy going to work. And I think it boils down to the fact that I was so needed in that role. Every single thing that I did was important and really mattered. And it was noticed if it didn't happen, not in a bad sort of micromanagement way, but I'd set up a meeting with a healthcare provider to get insurance for my colleagues. Like, that was really important, and I cared about them, and I wanted it to be a good policy. Mm-hmm. I had to go and find a new office. I wanted the office to be nice, and I wanted to have it fitted out in a way that they would be comfortable and happy in it, within the budgetary constraints, of course. But I really cared, and I hope that it came across that way. But I think the most joy that I've ever had from a role is when it really mattered. And I know I wasn't saving lives and teaching children things and anything like that. It was, in the grand scheme of things, it was nothing. But it was really important, and I felt really valued.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's something that I always have to remind myself of too. It's this idea that, okay, it's not just, I just scheduled a bunch of meetings. It's like, what was the purpose of those meetings, right? And what is the impact of those meetings? And what are the results of those meetings that I booked? And that kind of helps you stay motivated when you see that, oh, you know what, this was a really important session where our team, became more aligned on a project, or this was a call with an investor that put in $1 million, and that means we can pay our employees for another 6 months,
Absolutely.
All those types of reasons to kind of stay motivated instead of just seeing it like, oh, here's another meeting.
100%. Absolutely.
Well, Yvette, tell us about the admin wrap. So when did you start it? Why did you start it? What is it? All the fun things.
So again, like lots of other people, I started it in lockdown. We had a bit of time on my hands, and I thought, and I was thinking about various things, and I just thought I was getting lots of emails in my inbox from various companies, like recruiters and networks, and people who sell to assistants and everything. And I thought, you have to sign up to so many newsletters and look at so many things to find out what's going on. Why can't somebody who is agnostic to everything, not promoting anything specific, could just collate them all and put them into one newsletter? And so I started, and I thought, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see who reads it, and go from there, type of thing. And here we are 5 years later, and I'm still doing it.
Nice. And so how much time do you think you spend on it? Like, do you curate a bunch of, you subscribe to all those things and then just pull from them and put it together? Is it something that you're able to, do in batches where you maybe pull a month's worth of newsletters together and then schedule them out? Or are you pretty much like, live updates every week?
So I'm pretty live.
Okay.
I do subscribe to a lot of stuff, and I try and look through it. When I used to commute on the train, so I used to go through all of the newsletters on the train. When I'm sitting watching TV, and when you're scrolling, when you're meant to be watching something on TV,
Right.
Put it all together. It is pretty live because I try and keep it recent.
Mm-hmm.
I have one part of the admin wrap that I launched probably about a year or 18 months ago was the extra wrap, which is a more in-depth article that I write. I can do those in advance. So if I'm going on holiday or something, I can pre-do those so people can still get those in their inbox. But if I'm on holiday, quite often I've just not done the admin wrap while I'm away. It's just me that does it. So I don't want to do sort of a half-assed job of it. So I just say to people, there isn't one next week. I'm going to be laying by the pool.
Right. Totally. And then is there a cost to it? Is it free? Is there kind of multiple options? How does it work on that for our listeners?
So the admin wrap is free. I do have the occasional sponsor that pays me to keep the lights on, and I sometimes share some sponsored links and things like that. But to receive the admin wrap is completely free. There's a charge for the extra wrap. I put quite a lot of effort into that. Probably a good 2 or 3 hours per article, researching and writing it. And so I charge £45 a year for that. And there's a monthly option as well. Occasionally run promotions and things, but not all that often. But yeah, so it's mostly sponsors on the admin wrap. And then there's a subscription fee for the extra wrap. And that's partly why I would always make sure that it goes out even if I'm away, because people are paying for it. So
right.
They'll get it.
Awesome. Well, what's the best place for people to subscribe or learn more and reach out?
So you can go on to theadminwrap.com, and there's a link on there to take you straight to sign up to the newsletter, which is built on Substack.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I will, that's theadminwrap.com, but I'll also share that as well as your LinkedIn URL in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/352. And hopefully people will reach out and check it out. I definitely have been subscribing to it for, I don't know, I think probably since early on, since 2020-ish. So I always enjoy the work that you put in that I don't have to put in to pull these together, these resources together, because it is work.
I've shared a few of your events as well on there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Well, Yvette, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there any kind of last words or final notes of inspiration or challenging assistants that are listening that you wanna kind of leave on?
That's a great question. I think, and we've touched on this, like having faith in your own ability. Like being an assistant is not easy. If you're a really, really good assistant, you are worth your weight in gold. And if the person that you're working with doesn't see that, you're working for the wrong person. It has to gel. It has to work well. And sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. But more often than not, if it hasn't worked, it's not because the assistant is the problem. The problem is something bigger than that. And it's a bit like having a medical professional or a therapist or someone who you don't quite connect with. It's not anyone's fault. It just hasn't worked. So, just try and find the partnership that really works for you and go from there.
Well said. Thank you so much, Yvette. And thank you everyone for listening. Again, the show notes are at leaderassistant.com/352. And Yvette, I appreciate your time and appreciate the work that you put in for the assistant community with the admin wrap. And we'll hope to meet you in person someday.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com
The ping-pong back-and-forth game of manually scheduling meetings is unnecessary and inefficient in today's automated world. It's time to embrace calendar automation for increased productivity and capacity. You Can Book Me by Capacity is my favorite automated booking solution. It's a game changer for me and my executive. You can manage scheduling for your entire executive team, send automated reminders, add buffer time between appointments, and much more. You Can Book Me integrates with your existing Microsoft and Google calendars so you can add automation without disrupting your current workflow. Go to leaderassistant.com/calendar to learn more and sign up for a free trial of this powerful scheduling automation tool. That's leaderassistant.com/calendar.